Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Liv, I am an independent author, and I'm currently working on a sorority romance novel, hence the sorority shirt, with an estimated release date of fall 2026. And today I just kind of wanted to do a chatty video about the part of the writing process that I have come to struggle with more in recent years, just as I have gotten older and gotten to know more people, and that is the art of naming characters. So right now, my book doesn't even have a title. All right, it's got a working title, which is Violet's Novel. The series that it will be a part of when I eventually put out the next book is University Story, and that's just what I'm calling the overall series that it's in. And I gotta say, this is the first time in a while that I've struggled more to name my book than my characters. But one of the first things that I did when I started drafting, not even this novel, but if you watched my previous video, the earlier version of the University Story that later became Violet's Novel, one of the first things I did was I came up with a fake town for my story to take place in. I did toy with having it take place at University of Delaware because that is where I was a student at the time. And I thought it would be really cool to just reference all these places that people know, have it be kind of special for people who are local to Delaware. But one of the other characters, not Violet, but one of the other characters is a film major, and that is very, very important to the plot. And University of Delaware, at least at the time that I was looking into this, I don't know if they've since added one, but they did not have a film major available. So I decided to create a fake university and a fake town. And I think that, and I think it was also probably the better choice for me to create a fake university, because then when I created the fake sororities, then nobody's gonna be trying to be oh, well, what chapter was this supposed to be? Because they're all made up. None of them are supposed to be representative of any actual sororities. I can come up with my own timeline for when semester breaks are. I can come up with my own kind of campus events that take place. And I'm not as pressured to keep it super true to University of Delaware. And so I made up a fake town. Now, I grew up in California, if you didn't know, and when I would write my books, I would come up with fake towns within California, starting from a very young age. And it was usually in some way or another based on San Jose, which is where I grew up, but it was, I wasn't tied to the actual limits of what San Jose is. And I put a lot of effort into the fake town I made up for California. I genuinely know more lore about that town than I know about the actual town of San Jose, California. I printed off maps that I made in The Sims and drew where I would want certain things to be, so that when I'm writing the book I could reference oh, it's here and here. I did not do that with Brooktown, which is the fake town that is in Violet's novel. Did not go that deep into the lore with that. And I think that's okay too. I think it's good that for my stories that I someday put out that are set in the fake California town, it's good that I know all of that lore. But it's also good to just have a fake town that you don't know entire history books worth of lore about. I think that's also fine. And so, yeah, if you didn't catch that, the name of the town is Brooktown. However, one thing I will say is that, and one thing I did also kind of briefly go into this in my video where I announced Violet's novel as my next project, but creating a fake town in Delaware is a very different vibe than creating a fake town in California, because Delaware is very much its own culture. California is so big, you could add a fake town and you don't really have to think about logistically where it would go, how it would make sense. It just kind of yeah, you could believe that that's somewhere. You could believe that there's this town that happens to fit in California. Delaware, you can drive across the whole state in 2 or 3 hours. So making a fake town and sticking it in Delaware is kind of a different vibe, as I've realized. And as somebody who did not grow up in Delaware and has only lived here since 2018, there's I still don't really feel like I am part of the Delaware culture. There are things about there are things that people who grew up here get and understand that I just don't. And so the culture is very different making up a fake town in Delaware than in California. I am still going to go with the fake town just because I prefer to have as few ties to real entities as possible when I am writing fiction. So I ended up calling it Brooktown. I genuinely don't remember how I came up with that. I genuinely don't remember how I came up with the name of it. I think I was just like, cause it was spring 2019. And that was so many lifetimes ago. Like I just don't, I don't remember how I came up with it, but like it's, you know, it's a pretty basic town name, Brooktown. I did originally have one of the other characters in the book who is supposed to be from Delaware. I originally made up another fake town in southern Delaware for her to be from, but then I'm like, no, because Violet is from Portland, Oregon, so why does she get to be from a real place? And I made up a fake town for this background character, even if that character was originally like one of the focus characters of the novel. And so I ended up making her be from a real town in southern Delaware. I just made up a fake school for her to go to instead of the local high school. Because I don't know the culture of that high school. I have never taught there. I don't plan on teaching there. I obviously did not go to school there. And so I'm just like, I don't want to touch that culture. I'll have her have gone to a private school in a next town over or something. So that's that on that. I did also decide to use fake names for Greek organizations, the sororities and fraternities, because, you know, I only know what goes on within my own chapter. And even then, I don't really want to accidentally divulge any, like, I don't want to accidentally divulge too much, like, of the more sacred information of the sorority. I didn't want to make up fake initiation rituals, so I mean, I won't spoil what I did to get around that, but you won't, but you'll see, I didn't make up fake chapter initiation rituals, and I kept any description of ritual type things very vague. That was intentional, so you'll see that when you read it. But it was hard to come up with chapter names that didn't already exist in some form. Like I originally just went on, the National Panhellenic Council and like looked at like what chapters existed and looked at like all the fraternities that existed and just chose names that were not on that list. And then I also had to check D9 to make sure I didn't use any of those, because I'm not trying to go where I don't belong. And like the but there's so many Greek organizations. Like there's the honor societies, there's the major specific Greek organizations. And so it got to the point where I'm just like, if I accidentally use the name of a real organization, I'm sorry. Like I genuinely tried my best. So that's what I did for that. Now, naming characters is something that has become, naming characters is something that, as I said, has become harder the older I've gotten, the more people I've met in my life, because like, especially as a teacher, man, I meet like 180 new kids every year. So like, I like have these names for characters that I picked out for projects that I one day plan to continue, but I picked them out like over a decade ago when I was still in high school or even middle school for some of them. And I'm like very stuck on those names for those characters. Like they couldn't possibly be named anything else. And then I kid you not, I had a student last year and she was a good student, like not like, she didn't like ruin the name for me, but I had a student with the same first and middle name as one of the main protagonists of one of those projects I am still planning to return to down the line. And I'm just like, I mean, it's not like she's like ruined, like I said, it's not like she ruined the name for me, because she was a great student, one of my favorites for sure. But I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like now I feel like a little bit weird still using that name, but like I knew that character over a decade before I met that student. So like it wasn't weird enough for me to need to change it. It was just like a teeny little bit like, okay, but I got over it. But like that was a struggle that I would run into in high school when I was writing stories, and I would name these characters, and then I'd go meet somebody with that name and I'd be like, oh crap, I can't name the character that because now I know somebody with that name. And I would rename the character. And it's to the point where like, some of these projects I've been working on for so long, if I happen to meet somebody with the same name as my principal characters, I'm not changing it at this point. I don't care how that person ruins it for me. I'm just simply not. Now with Violet's novel, I did run into a very interesting situation in which, so I finished the rough draft of Violet's novel in 2022, okay? I was focusing on Saving Summer more around that time. So I didn't touch it again until last summer. So after I published Saving Summer last year, I went through Violet's novel and formatted a beta reader copy. And that was the last time I touched it before sending it to my editor this year. So when I got it back in July and I'm going through my editor's notes, I had completely forgotten that a not insignificant character in the second half has the same name as my ex-girlfriend from this year. And so that was a bit of a jump scare. Now, as I said, I named that character years ago. I will say, when I met my ex and like when we introduced ourselves, I remember she told me her name and I was like, oh, there's a character in Violet's novel with that name. And her last name's also really similar. Thought that was kind of interesting. Didn't think about it again. Completely had forgotten about it when I sent the document to my editor. Got it back, jump scare. Like, I don't know what was a bigger jump scare, that or there was a line kind of early on where Violet says like, well, who wants to be dumped in a text message? That's not a spoiler. That's her commenting on something entirely separate. But there's like a line that's like, who wants to be broken up with in a text message? And I'm just like, surely not me. Like, I did for a second think about changing it. Like, I considered it, but I'm like, my editor's already seen the first draft. I don't want to, as somebody who is pushing 30, be like, hey, I have to change the name of this not insignificant character because I accidentally dated someone with that name this year and had a really messy breakup with her. I'm just like, that's like, I was just like, I can't, I'm too old for that. Like, look, sidebar, I made a passing joke to my students last year about getting broken up with in a text message, and one of them was like, I still remember this so vividly. She was like, a text message? Oh, hell no, y'all too grown for that shit. Like, the way me and my friends still reference that comment all the time. And I want to stress, that was not, like, I want to stress, like, I felt out the vibes of that class, like, that if I were to drop that joke in passing, they would read it as a joke and not me trauma dumping to them. So I am quite literally too grown for that shit when it comes to changing the name of a character in a book I finished the initial draft of like 3 years ago. I'm not gonna say what the name is or who the character is. I'll just say they're not like a super main character, but they are reasonably significant to the second half of the book. So I'm like, it's not like I could just take the character out, but it's like not significant enough that like it's like not a significant enough character that I think it's that weird. So I'm not planning on ever basing a character off my ex. That's not, that's another thing that I feel like I'm a little bit too grown for. I feel like, you know, like I would be lying if I said I never based a character off of a real person in my life, especially people who have hurt me. But a messy breakup does not warrant a novel, okay? Like, you gotta like really, really like traumatize me to get a novel, okay? Yeah, but I would be lying if I said some characters weren't based off of people I know in real life. I know a couple people, I did tell them that that I was going to base a character in Violet's novel, not on them, but like kind of inspired by parts of their personality, certain moments in our friendship. Like, I was going to use that as inspiration for certain characters in Violet's novel. But I wouldn't base an entire character off of a real person at this point in my life. I'm not in middle school writing fan fiction about my own life anymore. And like, there are like moments throughout the book that like are inspired by real moments I had in my sorority, but like there's no specific character that's just like based on someone. Like, there's certain characters that like have moments that were taken from moments that were inspired by multiple real people, if that makes sense. But I just, and for the ones that like are more heavily inspired by people I actually knew, I do tell them ahead of time that I'm gonna do that, just because I don't want it to be super weird if they're reading a book. It's like, this character sounds very familiar. And she did what? Yeah, there are, I will say, some names that I will never use because of people that I know in real life who have ruined them for me. But like I said, those are people who have like either deeply traumatized me to my core, or people that like I have ruined my relationship or friendship with them, and it just wouldn't really be appropriate for me to use their name for a book character. I was gonna make a passing joke about like, you'll never see a character named this, but I feel like even that's like a bit much if I were to joke about it. But yeah, I tried to, like when I was pulling inspiration from my real life, I tried to focus on individual moments, not individual people. If I wanted to take a bit of inspiration from things that really happened to me in my sorority for this. The thing that I always had the most fun with growing up was making up fake last names for characters. Like that was where my creative juices really got flowing. And let me tell you, some of the last names that Young Liv made up. Like I told my friends, like as a joke, I should make a video that's like me ranking infomercial medications based on how much they sound like a character's last name I would have made up in middle school. Cause I'm like some of them are really just like, you really just made up a word. Like some of them really feel like you just made up a word. Like I'm sure there is a scientific reason behind why the drug is named that, but like, is there though? Like, did you just say sounds until something sounded right? Did you just make sounds until something sounded right to you? But yeah, I have less fun coming up with last names now because like I want my last names to sound normal and believable and not like medication that gets recalled on live TV. So my last names aren't really as creative. I just like, most of the time I'll use either a last name generator or I'll use create a Sims name generator, and I'll like go into create a sim, because if you didn't know, I love The Sims, especially The Sims 2, but for this I use The Sims 4 because that's what I have on this laptop. Is I will go into create a sim and generate random, I'll sometimes use that for first names too, but I'll mostly use it for last names. And some characters, I do have specific reasons for picking their names. Like Violet, I can tell you, I picked her name because there's actually a joke in the book where like another character is like, oh, well, you must be, or another character is like, I knew you were gay because your name means lesbian flower. And she's like, yeah, that's my parents chose it. Just kidding, that was a joke. When like nobody laughs. And and it's kind of like, it'll be kind of like an inside joke with whoever watches these behind the scenes videos, because that is quite literally why I chose it. Because like I said, her character originally came from a short story I wrote after reading The Well of Loneliness, and I was just very drawn to the name Violet and that meaning behind it. So I was like, you know what, I will be a little cliche and I will name the character Violet. And then I can't off the top of my head think of any other characters in this novel who were named that intentionally. Like even the other two like principal characters, their names were randomly chosen from a generator. Yeah, in Saving Summer, I went into a little bit about where I chose Summer's name from in the 5 fun facts video. I believe that is the without spoilers version. Nolan's name was randomly generated. Marta went into why I chose her name. Why did I suddenly forget every other character in that book? So generally I do use the random generator to come up with names, because I used to keep a running list of names that I thought sounded, of names that I liked the sound of that I wanted to use for characters. Or, okay, when I was like really like in elementary school, my grandmother bought me these toys from this line called Little Cousins. I don't know how obscure that line is. I've never seen it in stores. They would just randomly show up on my desk at my grandma's house. But every one of the Little Cousins dolls came with a chart of all the other dolls in the Little Cousins series, and there were tons of them, and they of course all had names, and I kept that in my desk drawer so that when I needed to come up with a name for a character, I could look at that and see if any names stuck out to me. but I honestly, I don't know where that paper is anymore. I know I still have it. I just don't know where it is anymore. I haven't thought about it. I haven't thought about using it in years. I will typically either generate them through a random generator or in The Sims. Typically it's going to be in The Sims because that gives me an excuse to play The Sims. Anyway, that is my long-winded rant about naming characters and places and Greek organizations. I have sent Violet's novel off for line edits. I should have those back in about 7 weeks now. And then that's probably when I'm going to start really workshopping a name. I do have a few that I'm kind of choosing between right now. But after the line edits is probably when I'm going to start really narrowing that down. Still planning on fall 2026 for my release date. I was thinking the other day, I was like, I could possibly line up the release of this sorority romance novel with the time of year where everybody is like following Alabama sorority rush, and like use that to my marketing advantage. But who knows? So, oop, my air conditioner just kicked on. Anyway, I will see you guys next time I make a video. I hope you're having a great day. Yeah, see you next time I make a video. Bye.